Alright, listen up. You know that feeling when you're absolutely certain you locked the door, but then you hear footsteps in your house anyway? Yeah, multiply that by 1,000 and throw it into the middle of nowhere Appalachia, where your phone's deader than disco, and the nearest human is like 3 mountain ranges away. Welcome back to the channel, where we dive into stories that'll make you think twice about ever saying, I love nature. Today, we're talking about 8, count 'em, 8 true encounters from deep Appalachia that prove some places aren't just remote, they're straight up wrong. And before we get started, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and drop a comment telling me which story freaked you out the most. Trust me, you're going to need to talk about this with someone afterward. Let's get into it. Story number 1, The Inheritance. Story number 1, The Hatch That Should Have Stayed Closed. So picture this. You inherit your grandparents' old house way out in the sticks. We're talking your GPS gave up an hour ago level of remote. Now, most people would hire an estate sale company and call it a day, but not our protagonist. Nope, they decide to spend 3 nights there alone, sorting through decades of stuff. Night 1, scraping sounds under the floorboards. Could be an animal, right? Possums, raccoons, whatever. Except this scraping was methodical, like someone testing the wood grain with their fingers. Then came this dull thud, like a hand pressing flat against the underside of the floor. Night 2 gets worse. The scraping moves closer, boards creaking under the bed, and then, and I cannot stress this enough, they hear a voice coming from directly below them. A wet, rasping whisper through what sounds like a mouthful of mud. Here's where it goes. Full nightmare mode. They look down the stairs and see the kitchen hatch. You know, the one leading to the crawl space, slowly opening. A pale shoulder streaked with dirt rises through the gap. Long, thin arms reaching for the floor. Yeah, they bolted. And honestly, that's the correct response. When the horror movie door starts opening by itself, you run. Now, if you think hiding in a house with something under the floorboards is bad, wait until you hear about what happens when you're camping in the woods and the thing out there starts using your mother's voice. Story number 2, The Voice Mimics. Story number 2, When the Woods Learn Your Name. 2 cousins decide to go camping in Fox Hollow, a place where locals have whispered about missing hunters for generations. Classic move, right? Oh, people disappear there. Perfect camping spot. Everything's fine until day 2, when they see something moving in the gully below. At first glance, looks like an elk, but then it stands up, arms hanging almost to its knees. Its jaw literally splits up the middle and falls open. That night, things escalate. One cousin wakes up, and his friend's sleeping bag is empty. He scrambles out looking for him, and that's when he hears it, his mother's voice calling his name from the darkness. The exact tone she used when he was a kid, afraid of the dark. But here's the kicker. As he's frozen, trying to figure out what's happening, he sees multiple pale figures circling him through the trees. And then the voices start multiplying. His mother, his cousin, even his own voice, all calling his name from different directions. He ran until he hit the old service road at dawn. His cousin Mason, never found. Forest Service searched for days. Nothing. Okay, so mimicking voices is nightmare fuel. But what if I told you There are things in these mountains that don't just call to you, they touch you while you sleep. Story number 3. The Jasper Bend Visitor. Story number 3. Don't go solo camping. Fresh off a funeral, our guy decides he needs some alone time to process grief. So he heads to Jasper Bend, a trail so forgotten that nobody's cleared it in decades. First red flag, he finds footprints at his campsite. Narrow, spaced way too far apart, like someone was jumping instead of walking normally. That night, he hears a 2-note whistle drifting through the trees. Too clean, too deliberate. He calls out, "Hello," which, buddy, stop doing that in horror situations, and gets nothing but silence. Later, while trying to sleep with a knife on his chest, smart man, he wakes to footsteps circling his tent. Then something presses against the nylon, just one finger, tracing the curve of the fabric above his knee. Slowly, deliberately. When he finally escapes at dawn, you know what's waiting at his truck. A strip of bark with a carving, long legs, oval head, no arms, just that blank silhouette. Someone carved it. Someone was watching. Someone wanted him to know. If you're keeping score at home, we've got things under houses, things in the woods, things touching tents. But we haven't even gotten to the houses where the things are inside with you. Story number 4. The Hollow House. Story number 4. When moving in was a huge mistake. After life falls apart, breakup, job cuts, the works, our protagonist moves into his uncle's old house in Nolan's Hollow. It's one of those grey wood structures that looks like it's been slowly dying since the 1800s. First few weeks, manageable. Creaky beams, weird noises, but nothing crazy. Then one night, 3 calm knocks at the door. He looks through the peephole. Nothing. Empty porch. But the wood feels cold, almost wet against his palm. An hour later, footsteps upstairs. Not random creaks. Actual footsteps moving deliberately from room to room. He grabs his revolver, because this is Appalachia, everyone's armed, and heads upstairs. Empty bedroom, locked window. Nothing disturbed. Then he hears whispering from behind his own bedroom door. A thin, papery voice repeating words in a language he's never heard. He opens the door and sees a shape. Tall, thin, wrapped in something that looks like it belongs in the ground, sliding along the wall. He ran, never went back, left everything. And honestly, good choice. All right, so abandoning haunted houses is survival 101. But what happens when you're out on family property, on an ATV, and you stumble into what is clearly a crime scene meets occult ritual? Story number 5. The Hollow Behind Grandfather's Property. Story number 5. The Trailer Circle of Nope. Cleaning out a deceased grandfather's property, our guy finds the old ATV keys and decides to take a ride down memory lane. What could go wrong? He rides deep into the property and discovers 3 abandoned trailers arranged in a creepy half-circle. Inside, 1, bones, small ones, stacked in careful rows, and hanging from twine across the doorway. Skulls, tiny skulls drilled through and threaded like beads. Because apparently, he has zero self-preservation instinct. He follows fresh tire tracks deeper into the woods. He finds painted symbols on trees, circles slashed with diagonal lines, spirals wrapped around stick figures, some drawn in something that dried brown. At the bottom of a hollow, there's a collapsed foundation with a doorway leading into darkness. The smell of sweet rot hits him, and then the pile of burlap sacks inside moves. Something inside is trying to roll over. A hand clamps on his shoulder. A man in a battered canvas hat smiles politely and says 5 words. You don't belong here. Run. He ran. Smart man. Now, if you thought finding ritual sites was bad, imagine being trapped in a cellar with something crawling toward you that has no eyes, no mouth, just blank skin stretched over a skull. Story number 6. The Grandfather's Cabin Cellar. Story number 6. Never check the cellar. 2 cousins cleaning out their late grandfather's cabin. He died alone in the kitchen, wasn't found for days. Already a bad vibe. They're sorting through jars of decades-old preserves when they realize they need to check the cellar. The grandfather never let anyone down there, always said it wasn't safe. Our protagonist heads down with a flashlight. Packed dirt floor. Wooden workbench covered in shallow cuts. Iron hooks swaying like someone just brushed past. And jars. Jars with yellowish liquid and things floating inside that don't look like food. Then the cellar door swings shut above him and latches. His cousin, panicked, says someone's outside in the trees watching her. Behind him in the cellar, something uncurls from behind burlap sacks. Thin limbs, elbow bending the wrong way with a little pop. It raises its head, smooth skin over skull, no eyes, no mouth, and begins crawling toward him. He throws himself against the door until the wood splinters. They both escape and never stop running until they hit pavement. Okay, so we've covered houses, trails, and cellars. But here's where it gets really unsettling. What if you're completely alone in the wilderness and something out there knows your name? Story number 7. The Solo Camping Nightmare. Story number 7. When nature calls your name. Literally. Experienced camper. Week-long solo trip into the most remote part of Blue Valley Range. Prepared for everything, except the one thing you can never prepare for. Second night, everything's calm. Then, in the middle of the night, he hears a voice. Low, close, steady. It says his name. Not a shout, not a question. Just spoken, like whoever it is knows exactly where he's lying in that tent. He convinces himself it's a dream. Next evening, he makes a massive fire and tries to stay awake. Fails. Wakes up to the embers dying and hears breathing. Slow, steady, deliberate. Coming from directly behind the boulder he's leaning against. The breathing never speeds up or slows down, just stays exactly the same until dawn. When he packs up to leave, he finds a boot print in the middle of the trail, bigger than his by 2 sizes. No prints leading to it, none leading away. Just one print, pressed deep. He ran to his car and never camped alone again. And finally, because we save the best for last, what happens when you're doing your job in the woods, and the woods decide you're not welcome? Story number 8. Track 14. Story number 8. The conservation job that went wrong. Conservation worker assigned to survey. Track 14. A parcel of land so forgotten. The last field report was from 1978. That report had one ominous line. Old dwelling remains. Advise caution. He finds the old foundation with the rusted stove, the crushed spoon, the lunchbox with bright marbles still inside. Then he hears something moving. Heavy. Deliberate. He calls out that he's just doing a survey. No answer. He finds a fresh boot print pressed into the leaves. Then he hears it. Come back. A cracked whisper through radio static. It repeats. Come back. Getting closer. He runs. crashes through rhododendron over deadfall, not caring about direction. When he finally reaches the road, he looks back. Something standing at the tree line, tall, old canvas coat with dark stains, no face visible. It raises one arm slowly and points back into the woods. He never returned to track 14. So there you have it. 8 encounters that prove Appalachia is beautiful, ancient, and absolutely not to be messed with. These aren't campfire stories. These are real accounts from real people who probably still check under their beds every night. Now here's my question for you. Would you explore these places if someone paid you? Because personally, I don't care if you're offering me $1 million. I'm staying in the city where the scariest thing I encounter is traffic. If you enjoyed this descent into Appalachian terror, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss when I post more nightmare fuel. Drop a comment telling me which story freaked you out the most. Or better yet, if you have any creepy Appalachia stories, share them below. I read every single comment. And remember, if you're ever camping alone and you hear your name being called from the darkness, maybe just pack up and leave. Your pride isn't worth becoming another missing person story. Until next time, stay safe, stay skeptical, and maybe stay out of the woods. Peace.